Welcome to the Know Before They Grow podcast. Today we'll discuss the history of DNA testing from its inception to its current uses. Sit back and join us as we explore how DNA testing impacts our lives.
All right, so we've got a stack of info here on DNA testing, and wow, we're talking about a real scientific revolution here, huge implications for everything from catching criminals to, well, maybe even like tracing your family tree. This is going to be interesting. And I definitely can't do this alone. So luckily, our expert is here to help us connect the dots. Before DNA testing really burst onto the scene, imagine trying to solve a crime with only eyewitness accounts and a bit of guesswork. Talk about a challenge, right? But then in the 1980s, along came Alec Jeffreys. Jeffreys was this scientist studying DNA, and he kind of stumbled upon something completely revolutionary, these unique repeating sequences within our DNA. And these sequences, he discovered, they were like a fingerprint, totally unique to each individual. Massive breakthrough, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. It really changed how we think about identification and its impact on criminal investigations. Almost immediate.
Right. Just a few years later, 1986, a murder case in England became the first one to use DNA evidence. 2 young girls, they'd been killed. And thanks to Jeffrey's work, the real killer identified. And even more than that, an innocent man was cleared. Really showed the world how powerful this stuff could be.
Absolutely. That case with the undeniable DNA evidence, it was a watershed moment. No exaggeration to say. It revolutionized forensic science. It pushed DNA testing into the spotlight, and it paved the way for its use, really in criminal justice systems around the world.
Yeah. And it didn't stop there. Just a year later, 1987, U.S. saw its first conviction based on DNA evidence. It felt like every time you turned around, DNA was solving another case, putting criminals behind bars with incredible accuracy. It was a game changer for sure, but also maybe a little bit scary. No, remember those early crime shows where they needed a whole vial of blood to run a DNA test? Seems almost archaic now, right?
It does.
Yeah.
Scientists quickly realized DNA could be extracted from way more than just blood, hair, bone fragments, saliva. Even the tiniest trace evidence could yield a DNA profile.
That's incredible. That completely changed the game for cold cases too, right? Cases that had gone cold for decades, suddenly back on the table.
Exactly. And not just cold cases. Being able to get DNA from such minimal samples became crucial for identifying human remains in all sorts of situations.
Yeah.
Missing person cases, natural disasters. It offered a new way to seek justice and bring closure to families, sometimes even decades after the fact.
Wow. It really makes you think about all those unsolved mysteries out there, just waiting for that DNA match to break them open. That's just the tip of the iceberg, really, when it comes to DNA's impact. Ready to explore a little further.
From tracking down criminals, let's shift gears to something even grander, mapping the entire human genome.
Yeah. The Human Genome Project. Huge undertaking. Started in the early 1990s. Scientists from all over the world came together this audacious goal to map out every single gene in the human body. Can you imagine the scale of that project?
It was truly groundbreaking, really pushing the limits of scientific knowledge and technology at the time. Essentially, they were trying to read the entire instruction manual of a human being.
And they did it. It's incredible to think about all the doors that opened once we had this complete map of our genetic blueprint.
Absolutely. The Human Genome Project.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a scientific marvel. It was a launch pad for a whole new era of medical research and discovery.
Yeah. One of the biggest game changers to come out of that project was the rise of personalized medicine. Remember that quote we talked about earlier? Cancer is a disease of the genome. Well, that statement really gets to the heart of what personalized medicine is all about.
Yeah. It's about recognizing that we're all different, genetically speaking. And those differences can have a huge impact on how our bodies respond to diseases and treatments.
Right. So instead of a one-size-fits-all approach to medicine, we could start developing treatments tailored to an individual's unique genetic makeup. It's like having a custom-made suit versus something off the rack.
Exactly. And the potential here is immense. Take cystic fibrosis, for example. It's a genetic disease, causes serious lung problems. With personalized medicine, doctors can now analyze an individual's genes, determine the best course of treatment, leading to better outcomes and a higher quality of life for patients.
Wow. It's remarkable to think that we can now pinpoint these tiny errors in our DNA and potentially even correct them. It's like science fiction becoming reality.
It really is. And while we're still in the early stages of personalized medicine, the possibilities, they're incredibly exciting. From developing more effective cancer treatments to identifying individuals at risk for certain diseases, the future of healthcare It's being shaped by our understanding of the human genome.
It really is. But DNA's reach goes beyond just catching criminals and revolutionizing healthcare. You know what else people are using it for these days? Genealogy.
Oh, yeah. It's become hugely popular. People are, like Lau, swabbing their cheeks, sending their DNA off to companies, analyze their ancestry, trace their family roots back generations, and even connect them with distant relatives. Like
cracking open a history book of your own family. You can uncover stories about your ancestors you never even knew existed. I bet there's some pretty incredible reunion stories out there, thanks to DNA testing.
There are. And it's not just about reuniting families. It's giving people a deeper understanding of their own identities, where they come from, the journeys their ancestors took.
Oh, it's amazing. Speaking of family connections, we can't forget about another area where DNA testing has had a huge impact. Paternity testing.
It's become like the gold standard for determining biological relationships with almost perfect accuracy.
Right. I mean, before DNA testing, paternity was often based on guesswork, or worse, like unreliable blood tests. But now, with a simple cheek swab, we have answers that are clear-cut and undeniable.
Absolutely.
It's fascinating how this one molecule, DNA, has intertwined itself with so many aspects of our lives, from the courtroom to the doctor's office to our own family trees. It's hard to imagine a world without DNA testing.
Been remarkable. Makes you wonder, what other secrets will DNA unlock in the future?
It really is mind-boggling when you think about it. This tiny molecule, DNA, holding the keys to our past, our present, and maybe even our future. But as with any powerful tool, it's not all sunshine and roses, right?
That's true. As DNA technology keeps advancing and becoming more accessible, it raises some pretty complex questions. It's like we're opening a door to a whole new world of possibilities. But we need to be mindful of the potential implications as well.
Yeah. It's a bit like that scene in Jurassic Park, right? Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could that they didn't stop to think if they should. Okay, maybe not that dramatic, but you see what I mean?
Yeah.
What are some of those, like, big questions we should be considering?
Well, one of the biggest is data privacy. You're talking about incredibly personal information, your genetic blueprint. So how do we ensure that this information is protected and used responsibly?
That's a great point. With companies now offering like ancestry testing and health reports based on your DNA, it makes you wonder who has access to that information and what they might do with it. It's not something you'd want floating around out there for just anyone to see.
Exactly. And as DNA sequencing technology becomes faster and cheaper, it's crucial that we have clear guidelines and regulations in place to safeguard this information and prevent potential misuse.
It's a bit of a double-edged sword, isn't it? On the one hand, DNA testing can provide incredible insights that can really improve our lives. But on the other, we have to be cautious about the ethical implications and potential risks.
Absolutely. And those are conversations we need to be having as a society. The more we understand about DNA and its implications, the better equipped we'll be to navigate this complex landscape and harness its power for good.
You've definitely given me a lot to think about. It seems like with every answer DNA testing provides, it also unlocks a whole new set of questions. But hey, isn't that what makes this journey of discovery so fascinating? Thanks for joining us today on this deep dive into the world of DNA testing. We've covered a lot of ground, from solving crimes to rewriting the future of medicine. And remember, this is just the beginning. Who knows what incredible breakthroughs and challenges await us as we delve deeper into the mysteries of our genetic code. Until next time, keep those brains engaged, stay curious, and we'll... Remember, it's better to know before they grow.